What's up, everybody? Welcome again to the CCV HSM YouTube channel. If you haven't already, be sure to click the subscribe button so that you can stay up to date with all the content that we are sending your way, both to entertain you and encourage you in your faith. Now, before we get into the message, here's Robbie with a few songs of worship just for you.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord, it's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only, God. Miracles happen when you move, healing is coming in this room. Miracles happen when you move. Oh, healing is coming. Oh, healing is coming. Miracles happen when you move. Oh, healing is coming in this room. Miracles happen when you move. Oh, healing is coming. This is a move. Oh, this is a move. Oh, this is a move. Oh, this is love. We are here for you. Come and do what you do. We are here for you. Come and do what you do. Set our hearts on you. Come and do what you do. 'Cause we need a move. We need a move. We need a move. 'Cause this is a move. This is a move. This is a move. Oh, this is a move. Oh, this is a move.
On one hand, I really miss meeting publicly and meeting with you guys and worshiping together and hearing you sing. It's just such an awesome experience in a cool environment, and I really miss that. But on the other hand, I'm so thankful for technology and the way that we can use it to still worship together, whether that's through Zoom on Sunday nights at our services or through this vehicle of YouTube and being able to reach you guys. So with that being said, I'm very excited. I'm very excited to start a 6-week series with you guys. But before we get into that, I want to ask you a question that I think says a lot about a person, and that is, if you could have one food for the rest of your life, just one food for the rest of your life, what would it be? It could be an appetizer, an entree, it could be a dessert, it could be a meal, whatever, and from wherever. I want to make sure you comment below, let me know, so that if I ever surprise you, maybe on your birthday, like the last video I asked you about, for our Easter video. If you haven't watched that, be sure to check it out. I can surprise you with that food on your birthday. How awesome would that be? Pretty awesome, I know. for me growing up, it was always burgers. I was a burger guy. I'm a fatty at heart. If I just had a big, juicy burger, I think I would say either Shake Shack's burger, like their double, or if you guys ever go to Railroad in Limerick, for all of you locals of Pennsylvania, their St. Lucifer burger, I'm done. It is the only thing I ever get from there, the St. Lucifer burger. It's so good. But now that I've kind of grown up a little bit, matured, again, a little bit, I'm a pizza guy. And I love pizza any time of the day. If it's breakfast time, obviously, I prefer it cold. But I'm not talking about like the 2 centimeter thin pizzas that you warm up in the microwave that burn your tongue. I'm talking about pizzas that fill a table, like massive, meaty, huge pizzas. I don't know what it is. I love it. The crust, the ingredients, everything about it. And it actually reminds me of our last student event, PCTC, where it's like a 3-day event, and I remember telling my kids, do not order out food for deliveries. We don't need other people coming into a hotel that we stayed at, because there was a perfectly good food court on the first floor. Now it was the end of a long day. I tell them not to order food. They're bothering me. I'm about to do room check. So what do? I break my own rule. I pull out the Domino's app. I order my pizza and just listen to the kind of pizza I ordered. I ordered an extra large. Imagine this. Try not to salivate. An extra large pepperoni, sausage, jalapeno pizza with garlic, cheese-filled crust. Just thinking about it right now makes me so happy and so hungry. I'm so ready to eat. As soon as this video is over, I'm out. But I ordered it at around 11:15 because I'm about to do room checks. It's so back ordered that I don't get the pizza in my room until 1 a.m. I'm sitting at 1 a.m. in my room, just like a little over an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes later. I open the box, and it's covering my whole lap because it's so big. I open the box, I look at it for about 30 seconds, and I just devour it. In 5 minutes, the entire box is completely empty. I kid you not even a single crumb. 5 minutes, it was all gone. Have you ever been so full that it just like, it hurts? Like your stomach is literally, you have a food baby. It was that moment. I remember I was so full. I was so happy, but also in so much pain, and I could only think of words to describe myself. I'm so full. I'm so happy. I'm hurting so much. I'm in so much pain. I'm a beached whale. Pete, do something more with your life than just eat pizza that leads to pain. And it was interesting because I was in the fetal position. I was saying these phrases and these statements about what I was feeling in a moment. And I realized that sometimes we use these phrases, we use these metaphors to just kind of generalize a moment of what we're feeling. And Jesus, he did this, but not just for a moment. He used phrases and statements to describe who he was, almost as a movement, as a person, and as someone that we could get to know better. And so what this series is going to be, it's going to be a 6-week series where I look at some statements that Jesus made that all start with the phrase, I am. So this is called the I am series. He makes a certain amount of I am statements, and we're going to look at each one, a different one each week. And so I'm excited to start the first one off right now. Okay, the first phrase that Jesus used. Before I say it, I want to set the scene. Now, Jesus is making his name kind of known among the people. And if you've ever been in a Sunday school or grown up going to church, this is a common story. It's the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. He feeds 5,000 people on a hill with just a few loaves and a few fish, and he multiplies it. They have like leftovers afterwards. It's a really cool story. But what's interesting is that the people that he feeds on the hill run into him later, and they ask him straight out, they're like, yo, one, who are you? How do you do what you do? And what do we have to do to be able to do it? And Jesus looks at him straight up. He says, if you want to know God, if you want to grow in your faith and do these miraculous things, all you have to do, big secret, focus on me. Trust me. And look what these fools say. Like, it just blows my mind. This is John 6:30 through 31. This is what the people responded to Jesus with. So they asked him, okay, what sign then will you give so that we may see it and, actually believe you? Like, what will you do? Because our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. And I can just see Jesus doing the, like, bruh kind of meme, because he had to think, did you not see what I just did for you? Do you not understand the miracle that just happened, that you are benefited by of me feeding you? And so there's two important things I want to address here, okay? Two important things. The first one is that the people talking to Jesus like this, they're not insane. They're not crazy, and they're not out of line. In fact, they're just like you and me. These people are so unaware of how Jesus miraculously moved in order to feed them. And I think sometimes you and I can be so unaware of how Jesus is moving behind the scenes, in the details, mending relationships, forming opportunities, answering all the small and big prayers that you and I ask for, beg for, but then we go about our lives not even realizing how he's weaving his miraculous way through it and working it all together for our good. I think sometimes we say a prayer, shoot off in the sky, and we just go about our day hoping something happens, and if it does, awesome, but not even acknowledging that Jesus is the one that answered it. And I see such a comparison between us and these people. And that's the first thing. The second thing is that they bring up manna. Now what manna is it's fresh bread. And in the Old Testament, their ancestors wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Not 40 minutes, not 40 days, not a month, 40 years. And each morning they would wake up to a fresh serving of bread, a fresh pile of manna at the doorstep or their footstep of their tent. And they knew that God provided it. And this is so important because what that did was each morning they would wake up to that fresh pile of bread, and that would enable them to trust that whatever they had, whatever God had provided, was exactly what they needed. It was never too much, never too little. And over time, that formed a trust between them and God, that whatever else was happening, God would provide them with exactly what they needed. Exactly what they needed. And that trust was all they needed when everything else was going crazy. And if you've ever heard the Lord's Prayer where it says, "Give us this day our daily bread," that's where that comes from, forming that trust. And in this passage with Jesus, they're asking him about it. And what's cool is that Jesus is trying to do the same thing for these people, not just with food, but with himself, to be that thing that they can trust and know that he is exactly what they need. Let me read you the rest. This is John 6:32-35. Jesus said to them, "Very truly, I tell you, it's not Moses who's given you the bread from heaven, but it's my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." "Sir," they said, "always give us this bread." And then Jesus declared, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." So in Jesus' response, he makes his first "I am" statement by saying, "I am the bread of life." Basically saying, I am the very thing you need. I am what you crave, not because of what I can do for you, not what I can impress you by, but because of who I am. And you see, I can still remember just how hungry I was in that hotel room. The craving I had for the crust, thinking about it's getting me hungry again. But what I remember most, and people can attest to this, I will sometimes be eating a meal, I'll stop, I'll shake my hand and just say, I'm so excited for my next meal. While I'm enjoying what's in front of me, I'm so thinking ahead of what I'm going to be able to indulge in next, because guess what happened the next morning? As soon as I was full and as much as I was in pain, the next morning, breakfast came. And that physical cycle started all over again, where I was hungry and I was excited to eat. And when I thought about the physical cycle, and I want you to imagine this, when I thought of the physical cycle, I began to think of you and I's spiritual cycle. Because you see, physically, food is vital for you and I to function healthfully. We have to know how to sustainably feed ourselves. And you may have never thought about it this way, but just as much as you have a physical body that you're responsible for upkeeping, maintaining, and sustaining, you have a spirit that you're responsible for feeding and upkeeping and maintaining. And when you have that click in your mindset that you have that spirit that you're responsible for, you see that it is your spirit that moves when you hear that song, when you hear that worship song, when you hear that sermon, when you spend time reading the Bible, or when you spend time with God. When his spirit moves and your spirit is moving and they interact, that is what grows your relationship with God. And what Jesus is saying is that I am the bread of life. He's saying that he's the main thing that your spirit desires and craves when we cry out for something to fulfill us. Not distract us, not temporarily, fill our minds with whatever, but to fulfill us. To be the thing that, he only can provide for us, like Jesus was to the people on the hill. They needed food, get this, they needed food and they needed Jesus, but it was through Jesus that they got both. Sometimes you and I, we need this and we need Jesus, but we go straight to whatever distraction or whatever, quick fix we need. We need Jesus so that we can get both of that. I recently read an article that said something interesting. They said, a doctor in America once said that more people die of loneliness, guilt, depression, insecurity, and heart hunger. More people die of those things than die of actual physical starvation. And not only is it through Jesus that we're being fed, but it's through Jesus that we'll ever be full of purpose, joy, peace, and hope, and basically everything we were made for. It is through Jesus that we can attain those things. So I simply want to ask you, how are you, sitting here watching this video right now, how are you feeding your relationship with Jesus? And actually think about it. Because physically, every day we eat. We have to physically eat. Mentally, we grow by learning and maybe distracting ourselves, memorizing things like lyrics of songs and school stuff. But spiritually, how are you feeding yourself? If it was going to HSM on every other Sunday night, what are you doing now that we can't meet? If it was going to church on Sunday mornings, what are you doing now? And again, not just once a week, but daily feeding yourselves. How about you go a week without physically eating? See how your body responds. Some of you feel spiritually starved. And I don't think it's anyone else's fault other than our own. And when I think of that, I think of all the toddlers and like the babies that, they get fed and they're in their baby chair and they're just like getting fed. They're getting their food airplaned to them. Yeah? How ridiculous would it look for you as a teenager or even adult to demand yourself to be put in a baby chair and say, feed me, feed me, feed me. Jesus wants a relationship with us so that we can learn to feed ourselves. And now is the perfect time. Now that we're quarantined, isolated, now that we have more time than ever, man, now is the best time to understand why Jesus is the bread of life and for us to feed on that, to trust that, to grow in that, and to learn what that means. So I encourage you this next week until week 2, that video comes out, I encourage you to spend some time reading, praying, feeding yourself spiritually. I hope this was encouraging. I hope you got something out of it. As always, if it was, feel free to share it and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Love you guys. Hope to see you soon.